Today I'm showing you how to use Makin's clay to make gift tags that can double as ornaments on your holiday tree. To get started on our little gift tag ornament, I'm using a package of natural Makin's clay. This is their 120 gram package. Inside, the clay is wrapped in an outer wrap, which we're just going to remove. I'm going to go to this one that I've already opened. And then it's wrapped in an inside cellophane wrap also. If you're going to use the entire piece, you can go ahead and remove the clay from that outer wrap, or you can just cut off the amount that you want and keep the rest in the cellophane. And then I keep it in a Ziploc bag with a damp paper towel to keep it fresh while I'm working with it, because it is a no-bake, air-dry product. So I rolled out that full 120 gram package of the natural clay. You can either use the Ultimate Clay machine to do that, or you can use a hand roller. And I rolled it to about 1/8 of an inch thick. This sheet is dry, but if it was still wet and you happen to have a tag-shaped cutter, you can cut the clay while it's wet into the tag shape that you want. I allowed mine to dry. Once it's dry, the clay can be cut with scissors or it can be die cut. So if you happen to have a Sizzix or another brand tag die, you can cut the clay with that. Or plan C, if you don't have either of those. For this particular project, I used these DecoArt Americana tag stencils from their mixed media collection. And I just placed them onto that sheet and I traced them out with a pencil. After I had traced my different tag stencils, and I made an assortment of different shapes and sizes, you can go ahead and in the clay we'll just cut with scissors. I love my Westcots because they're strong enough and sharp enough to cut through anything. But you see the clay is easy to cut, and I just cut around that tag shape that I wanted. So here's the finished tag. Now the stencil, I didn't trace the hole for the tag, but again, Makin's clay is lightweight and flexible, so after it's dry it can be punched also. So I just used my crocodile to make my hole for my ribbon. I wanted to add some stamping to my tag to give our little gingerbread man a background. And to do that, I'm using the Easy D's from KellyCraft. I'm using one of their rail sets. This set was designed by Ann Butler. And some Clear Snap ink. So I've got this sort of burgundy berry color from this set of Cat's Eye inks, and I'm going to go ahead and ink my rail stamp. And I'm doing it on this scrap paper. I want to make sure I get the entire area, so I'm pressing a bit and then lift it up, and then I re-inked it and I continued stamping it up, and they match up perfectly, so you can do an entire background. And there's our finished one. One thing I like to do with my pigment inks to make them dry immediately so you can continue with your project is if you use one of these perfect crafting pouches from Scrap Perfect and literally just pat it over the whole surface of the stamped area, it then dries that ink so that it's ready to use. You can just remove any extracts of powder, and you're ready to go without any drying time. Now it's time to make our little gingerbread man. To make our little gingerbread man for our tag ornament, I'm using terracotta Makin's clay. And again, I only cut off the piece that I wanted to use for this, and I'm leaving the rest in that second package, and I'm putting it into my Ziploc to use for later. And I'm going to roll out this terracotta ink to probably about 1/4 of an inch. I've got it on this non-stick multi-mat from KellyCraft, which makes it easy because it just lifts right up. And I'm going to texture it with this texture sheet from Makin's clay. Sort of a sand texture, but it reminds me of a cookie. Now we're ready to cut our little gingerbread man and decorate him. So I'm just going to cut him out with this little gingerbread man clay cutter from the 3-piece set from Makin's. Push him out of the cutter. And there's our little gingerbread man. To make our little icing decorations on this cute little gingerbread man, I've rolled out some white Makin's clay, very, very thin this time. And I'm using the wavy cutter from the professional toolkit. And I'm just dragging it along, making that zigzag cut. And then I think it's easier to match it if I switch it around. I'm going to line my blade up so that the cuts are in the same position. And I'm cutting a strip about 1/8 of an inch. A little wavy zigzag. And this is what I'm going to use to add our little icing trim to our gingerbread man's arms and legs. Now, wet Makin's clay will stick to wet Makin's clay without any additional adhesive. If you're working with it and it starts to dry a bit, you can take a tiny bit of water and just wet the surfaces and they will stick together. Or if you want to be extra sure that they're going to stay, you can use a little bit of a tacky glue to adhere them. So now our little gingerbread man has his little zigzag icing trim on his arms and legs, and I actually just use my fingernail to trim it around the edges, but you could use a craft knife to do that. And to make his little buttons and his little eyes, I'm just using tiny little balls of the white Makin's clay. Again, if your clay is still wet, you don't need adhesive. If it wasn't, you can add a tad bit of a tacky glue, a clear drying glue. Kind of give him some little eyes. And then I gave him 3 little buttons. I mounted him, I did use a craft glue to mount him to the center of our tag. And to make the top and bottom, it's the same technique. I used the same white rolled clay, only I rolled it, I cut it about 1/4 of an inch this time to make that decorative edge. And again, I used my Beacon tacky glue and put a piece on the bottom and the top of the tag. Once you've added your little icing trim to the top and bottom of your tag front, again, I used my Beacon tacky glue to hold that on, or on the top and bottom of our little gingerbread man. I went and added a strip of coordinating ribbon. I just pushed it through that hole and tied it in the back and made a loop so that after the recipient takes it off their gift, you can use a permanent marker to write right on the back, to and from, and happy holidays, or whatever message you want. But afterwards, they have a cute little Christmas ornament that they can use to hang on the tree for next year. In addition to the little gingerbread man tag, I made some other styles too that I wanted to share. This one has sort of a country Christmas feel. I used another of the KellyCraft Easy D's stamps, a plaid background, and the Makin's Clay Nature Holiday Push Mold, the poinsettia from that, and I just used the clay directly in the mold to make the multicolored poinsettia, which I added with my Beacon tacky glue. And I used yarn for the hanger on this one because I thought it kind of had a country Christmas feel. And then for the blinged up version, this little tag has the same rail stamp that I used for this one that I stamped. And again, I used the Nature Holiday Push Mold to make my holly. Mounted that with the tacky glue. Added a little bit of bling with this Buckle Boutique self-adhesive rhinestones. I did add some additional adhesive just to make sure it stays on our tag for long term. And a little bit of a shiny, blingy ribbon with that one. So whether you want to go bling country or kind of a homespun gingerbread boy, these tags are a fun way to give someone a special gift that goes on and can be used again next year on their holiday tree.